a night of protests and riots over claims of racism against the Ethiopian community, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Reuven Rivlin addressed the, quote, open wound in Israeli society. As U.S. military helicopters begin flights over Nepal to assess the damage in remote villages, a look at 1 week inside the disaster-struck nation. François Hollande seals a $7 billion warplanes deal with Qatar as the French president heads to Riyadh for a summit with Gulf countries, where Iran will be a major concern.
The News Today with Lucy Aharish.
Good evening and welcome to the News Today. Less than a day after violent protest of the Ethiopian community rocked Tel Aviv, Israeli President Reuven Rivlin said today that Israel must look at the open and bloody wound that has been covered. Last week, long-simmering anger within the Ethiopian minority erupted, sparked by a video of two police assaulting an Ethiopian soldier in uniform. For his part, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held urgent talks with community leaders today and with the soldier in the video. But if it will all lead to serious positive changes is unclear. We'll look closer and speak to one of the leaders who met with Netanyahu today. But first, let's take a look back.
אני הזדעזעתי מהדבר הזה. אנחנו לא יכולים לקבל את זה. המשטרה מטפלת בזה. אנחנו צריכים לשנות את הדברים.
אני מקווה שיבינו שהעדה האתיופית הם חלק מהחברה הישראלית. וכן הם מנסים להשתלב בחברה הישראלית, לא משנה באיזה תחום. ודי לאלימות ולגזענות.
ואסור לנו בשום פנים ואופן לתת לקומץ מתפרע ואלים להשתיק את הזעקה הלגיטימית.
Yes, all this in Israel. With me tonight is Fentaun Asefa Dawit, Executive Director of Tebeka Advocacy and Justice for Ethiopian Israelis. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming.
Good evening. Good
and also Professor Esther Herzog, Professor of Social Anthropology at Beit Bill and Levinsky College, co-coordinator of the Women Parliament. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you too.
I will start with you, Mr. Asefa Dawit, and I would like to ask you what you met today with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What did he tell you exactly?
Well, the Prime Minister spent, first of all, he was very patient listening to everything that we had to say. We actually spilled over to him on the table whatever the Ethiopian Israelis are going through. I must say, he was very disturbed with the figures and the facts that we presented to him. He was shocked. He even said, you know what, I must admit, I didn't know the situation is this bad.
He didn't know. He didn't know the situation was that bad.
He wasn't aware of the figures and the facts as we presented it today to him. After meeting with that same soldier who was beaten up by the two police officers, and listening to what we do, especially us at the Tebeka, in the last 15 years we've been handling. And I say to the Prime Minister, you know, the sign was on the wall for many, many years, and we've been crying out. And And he really seemed very, very genuine. What's, the best part of all of it is, at least, I hope, whatever he decided and promised will be implemented. And he did come to us with very, very concrete suggestions to resolve the problem.
I want to ask you, Professor Herzog, when a society is so occupied with dealing with the outside threats, when a society is so occupied with dealing with Iran, with the memory of the Holocaust, with the fact that in any second now, Israel can be demolished, isn't it a society that usually forgets itself and forgets its own problems and is really surprised to hear that the problems are so genuine and so real and are for the last 15 years and they had no idea that it happened?
Well, I don't know if the picture is that dramatic, If you go to the beaches, you see people enjoying themselves. You go to the cafes, you see people sit there, drink coffee, have nice time with their friends, families, and so on. So I wouldn't go that far to describe the situation as so dramatic, People live their daily life. And actually, they would rather go on with normal life, not thinking about all the catastrophes around there and about the troubles and social problems and so on and so on. So, when this happens, then everyone seems to be surprised. And I don't know why we should be surprised. This is part of life, and people who are very angry and feel more stronger, because I think that the young Ethiopian people feel much stronger now.
I will tell you why, because I was a little bit cynical and with asking this, because whomever is living in Israel, and whomever traveled a little bit in Israel and is coming from the periphery and is coming from, living in Tel Aviv and going for a walk in the south of Tel Aviv, has to know that there is something wrong in the way that this society is handling itself, or in the way that its society is actually treating itself. So coming and saying, wow, I was so surprised that the minority community, like the Ethiopian community, feels like that. You have the biggest example is the Arab community in Israel, which is crying out loud for the last, 67 years? So,
you're quite right. People cannot say that they didn't know and they were just so shocked about what is happening. And I'm shocked that the Prime Minister, who is shocked from what is happening, things are not even being written on the wall. They have been everywhere, and it goes on for years. Once the Ethiopian immigrants were brought and they were actually separated from the general population and put and concentrated in these absorption centers, in a kind of ghettos, I think. Yes. And they put their children in separate classes. I think this is so clear that the results can be only the feeling of being marginal and being separated, and this is the real situation.
Yeah, I just want to remind even us here in the news today, we just 2 years ago, we just brought the case of Pnina Tamano-Shata, a Knesset member that came to donate blood, and they didn't want to take her blood because she's an Ethiopian. And it happened inside the parliament. So saying that I didn't know that it's such a big of a problem, it's a little bit trying to be naive, but we will continue discussing this, of course, and more on the Ethiopian community from Uri Shapira.
Tel Aviv's Rabin Square was quiet this morning. There seems to be no evidence of Monday night, one of the most violent and intense protests the city has known in the last few years. Hundreds of people came out to support the Ethiopian community and protest racism and police brutality. At least 68 people were wounded. President Reuven Rivlin condemned the violence.
Protest is an essential tool in democracy, but violence is not the way and not the solution. The demonstrators and police acted with restraint, and that is worth noting. We must not let a small, violent, rioting group silence the legitimate cry.
A day after the mayhem, some members of the Ethiopian-Israeli community feel satisfied.
Yesterday's demonstration was inspiring. I'm so proud of the youth who arrived and spoke their mind. There was also violence by a few, fueled by anarchist elements. And I'm sorry about that. Most of the demonstrators arrived here to express their feelings and did not want this violence.
This is not the first time the Ethiopian-Israeli community has called for equal rights, but it definitely was the most significant attempt to shout out loud against racism and discrimination. Some of the Jewish Ethiopians who came to Israel were located here in Givat HaMatos neighborhood in the outskirts of Jerusalem. This may shed a little light on the roots of the conflict between the State of Israel and the community. 30 years have passed since Israel brought the members of the community to the country, but it seems little has changed. Last week, a video showing an Ethiopian Jewish soldier brutally beaten by police without apparent provocation sparked outrage in the community. On Monday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met the young soldier and told him of his shock when he saw the video.
We spoke about everything that has happened. He knew about the issues, knew what he was talking about. First of all, it's a boost, and it's encouraging that it's the Prime Minister's personal initiative to talk to me and to meet with me. It was a good meeting. I left with a good feeling.
It's been a long road for the Ethiopian Jews who left the war-torn country and immigrate to Israel. Nowadays, it seems that the journey to be accepted and recognized may be long and tough as well.
Yes, with us right now on the line from Jerusalem is Israeli police spokesman Miki Rosenfeld. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
So, Mr. Rosenfeld, let's try to understand, because today I read one testimony from Ethiopian policemen that said that the brutality and the excessive force that is being used towards the Ethiopian community is something that he witnessed and he saw. Of course, he didn't want to, he didn't say his name, of course, and he didn't state where his position is. But this is something that you see every day, that you are seeing that maybe because of the color, the police is treating people in a different way.
No, absolutely not. I disagree totally with that assumption. You have to understand, first of all, the Israeli police deal with thousands of connections with members of the public every day, both in criminal-related incidents as well as terrorist-related incidents. What takes place, and unfortunately what we saw with that specific soldier, was definitely, as far as we can see, an extreme and one-off incident. It started with a few words and unfortunately within seconds turned into in fact, a physical contact, and then unfortunately the police officer who acted absolutely out of the way he should have acted. And immediately a test was set up by the Israeli police to look into the incident itself. He was removed from his position, and he was in fact already fired by the Israeli police commissioner.
You know, Mr. Rosenfeld, with all due respect, but if it was one, let's say, specific case that happened, we wouldn't have seen the images that we saw yesterday. It was one of the biggest protests that I remember in Israel, let's say one of the most in central Israel, that people are actually, because I saw other protests of the Ethiopian community, and the Ethiopian community is really a quiet community, is doing really quiet demonstrations, trying to integrate inside the Israeli society.
I agree with you 100%.
But when such kind of a demonstration is happening, you have to say that they have something maybe true in what they are saying about when a police officer is seeing somebody that is black, he's usually looking at him as a criminal.
No, I don't agree with that. Yesterday, what took place during the afternoon in Tel Aviv on the Ayalon Road, there was a peaceful protest. The roads were blocked and Israeli police stepped back. They didn't respond, didn't react, and the demonstration took place without any incidents whatsoever. Unfortunately, later on in the evening, when local members of the Tel Aviv area joined the demonstration in the Rabin Square, unfortunately, those two factors together took advantage of the situation, and police units had to respond at the scene after stones were thrown at them. We didn't want it to get violent, but once again, going back to the main point, the Israeli police, within the Israeli police, we have hundreds of Ethiopians that serve within the Israeli National Police. Our police officers do as much as possible in order to prevent those types of incidents from taking place. What happened in that event was unacceptable. We're fully aware of that. The officers are fully aware of that as well. But at the same time, we have to look ahead in order to breach the gaps within the Ethiopian community. But it's not just a police issue.
So what we saw yesterday was not an excessive force?
Pardon?
What we saw yesterday with the use of the force of the police was not, let's say, exaggerated force?
The Israeli police, after stones were thrown at them, and unfortunately a large number of police officers, almost 56 police officers were injured from stones yesterday. In any type of demonstration that takes place, once there is stones and bottles and iron bars thrown at them, then any police force around the world would respond and disperse the crowd. That was something that had to be done. But that specific demonstration was not just from the Ethiopian community, which is a quiet and respectable community. There were local residents, and that's what I mentioned, left-wing activists that came and joined and stirred up the atmosphere, and unfortunately, police had to respond and react.
Mr. Rosenfeld, one last question. Is there a new assessment or maybe looking inside or maybe re-educating the system in the police so things like that won't happen again?
Our police officers go through in their basic training almost a week of understanding the different types of communities, both the Arab-Israeli community, both understanding the Christian communities, the Ethiopian communities, and understand the importance of serving the communities. The Israeli National Police Force is a police force that serves the community. It's not against the communities. There's two sides of the coins here, and there's a much broader perspective that has to be looked into. In the same way that we're talking about not just a police problem here, we're talking about issues that have to be dealt with, that are related not to the Israeli police, but are related to the Ethiopian community, that are on a social, economic, and other levels as well.
Yes, Mickey Rosenfeld, foreign press spokesman of Israeli police. Thank you very much for this. You heard what Mickey Rosenfeld said, and no, it was one specific case, one specific officer who was treating the Ethiopian community like that, or he treated this specific soldier like that, and it's not a phenomena. This is not something, it's like, you know, it's very easy to say we have hundreds of police officers who are from Ethiopian origin, and everything's okay with the police.
Unfortunately, it is a phenomenon, and it's been happening for many years now. When we met with the chief of the police on Thursday, he also realized and recognized the problem and admitted that there is a problem and we should do something about it. The fact is, after we met with him on Thursday, we met again with the high-ranking officers of the police department yesterday in Jerusalem. And we have already on the process of establishing workforces where we are going to be dividing the different areas of the police work, including bringing in some kind of educating material into the police officers, assessing the situation again. How is a police officer recruited to begin with? It's not only about the knowledge that he has, but we have to look into the capability of being a police officer. That means how he's going to handle the, Israel is a diversified country in terms of culture, in terms of background. So a police officer who should be giving the confidence, who should be giving the security. I should feel secured when I say police officer. And that's not be afraid and not be afraid from him. And therefore, what's important here is looking ahead, looking forward. There is some kind of realization of the situation, realization of the fact. And the thing is, what can we do in order to improve this? And I believe the chief of the police, who is going to be leaving office very, very soon, admitted, and we're starting the process, and hopefully...
They have a lot of things to fix in the police after
well, yes, we do.
Yes, they do. Except the Ethiopian problem. There's just one problem that the police needs to face.
We need to be on the guard, and we need to push.
I want to take this point because I have great respect for Mr. Rosenfeld and the spokesman of the police. But he said a sentence like, "It makes it okay." We have we have a lot of Ethiopian officers, and of course, it's like saying, I have a gay friend, so I'm not a racist against gays. Some of my best friends are Arab, so I'm not racist. I have a lot of Ethiopian friends, so I'm not racist. The Israeli society...
This is a very, very famous system, method to take the minorities, representatives or people, and to cooperate, or to make them cooperate with the system. You know, once you have them inside, then you make sure that the whole community is a little bit behaving themselves. You know, so this is a cooptation system. You know, that's in sociology. It's a very, very known term.
But, you know, the question is, are we in Israel a racist society?
No.
Are we that not tolerant towards the other?
Well, I'll tell you, I think that we are just normal people like any other people in the world. Racist and non-racist, you have nice people, bad people, and all the kinds of them. And actually, I think that racism is there, no doubt. There is racism against Ethiopians, there's racism against Arabs, there's a lot of racism around here too. But I think that racism here is the result, it's not the reason for the problems that are related to the Ethiopian community. The racism was not there. When the Ethiopian immigrants came here, Israelis were so excited. They got out of the way to come to them, to help them, to meet them, but they were actually prevented from creating any personal relationships because the bureaucracy, the officials were all around them, and they were just preventing any kind of direct interactions between local veteran Israelis and the newcomers. So once you get over by the bureaucratic machinery over this group, then you make sure that the integration is prevented. And that's what we got. The integration was actually prevented by this bureaucratic patronage.
So let's ask who used to be a former Israeli Minister of Immigrant Absorption and a member of the Jaffa Board of Trustees, Yair Tzaban. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, Lucy.
So, Mr. Tzaban, I need to understand what went wrong. What went wrong with the Ethiopian community? And I'm saying not with the Ethiopian community itself, but with the way that the Israeli society, let's say, accepted the Ethiopian community into it.
Oh, it's quite a long list of items to point. Mainly, the problem is whether the people who were responsible for the integration of the Ethiopian Jews were minded to that what it's needed to ensure the best integration, which is possible. It's not a simple challenge. Basically, you cannot jump over the gaps of cultures and other differences. The problem is not started with the Ethiopian community. It's more basic issues. First of all, what is the general social policy of the government? What are the social gaps in our country, the class gaps in our countries? Of course.
You know, you want to point for me, please, what are the different, what is it us patronized the Ethiopian community, we didn't look them in the eyes, because there is a difference between the Russian immigrants that came to Israel and there is a difference between the Ethiopian immigrants that came to Israel and made aliyah. This is totally, and you can see it, by the way, even that the Russians are treating the Ethiopians and vice versa. This is... There are differences.
I can judge only based on my experience. I am proud that the Ethiopian community consider my term as the best terms whatever in the Israeli experience. And the key reason was, first of all, when I started my term, I declared that the main issue is respect. Respect to the other, respect to the other culture, respect to the other group. And if you are not respecting, you will experience again and again tragedies that we experienced in the past with the Moroccan immigrants and with the Yemeni immigrants, etc.
Yes, unfortunately, no. It seems that we have a lot of lack of respect to the other.
Yes.
Mr. Yair Tzaban, thank you very, very much for talking with us in this part of the show.
Can I really react to what he said? Well, I don't think that respect is the main problem. I mean, respect we need, of course, between people and so on. But what we need is a policy. And the policy is the thing that makes things going. And if you take the money and you put all the money or most of the money in the bureaucratic machinery, then most of the money does not reach the people who you
actually need it.
Yes, who really need it. And you say you're talking about helping them. But the money is actually goes directly to the machinery that keeps the officials, the bureaucracy.
Of course, like you said,
so, I mean,
the bureaucracy.
But if you take Yair Tzaban, with all due respect, I mean, he is not different from any other of the minister of absorption. None of them dared to do anything about this segregation. They all stuck to the what I call an indirect absorption through the absorption centers.
Before we're finishing, I just want to ask you how you felt when you came to Israel.
Well, I'll tell you, this is my dilemma. I have a big dilemma here. I'm just referring to what Mr. Tzaban said. I agree with him. I think it's a culture of respect that we are lacking here in this country. Respect that doesn't mean I have to bow to you or do anything. Respect is seeing you, realizing that you are a person no matter where you come from, and respect your boundaries, respect your culture, respect your language, respect your color, and, like you or love you for who you are. I think there is racism and there is an elitism. Here in Israel, there is an elitism. The Ethiopians or the minority groups are looked up from up to bottom to down. They are not equal anyway. You cannot look at an Ethiopian or any group of minority on an eye level. So if we come to understanding, if we come to seeing that this is one issue that we have to deal with, I think most of the problems will be solved. Coming to how I felt as coming to Israel.
Unfortunately, I don't have time, but we will invite you again, even this week, to continue, of course, dealing with this. This is a subject that should not be put out of the table. Thank you very much, both of you, for coming for this part of the show. Thank you very much. We're going out for a small break, 2 minutes, and I'll be back. After a night of protest and riots over claims of racism against the Ethiopian community, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Reuven Rivlin addressed the, quote, open wound in Israeli society. As U.S. military helicopters begin flights over Nepal to assess the damage in remote villages, a look at 1 week inside the disaster-struck nation. And François Hollande seals a $7 billion warplanes deal with Qatar as the French president heads to Riyadh for a summit with Gulf countries where Iran will be a major concern. Welcome back to the news today. Over a week after the 7.8 magnitude earthquake devastated Nepal, the death toll now over 7,300 people continues to climb, while U.S. military helicopters begin flights over the country to assess the damage in hard-hit remote areas. I-24 News correspondent Shai Ben-Ari brings us a special report from a week in the disaster in Nepal.
It was a week of despair mixed with glimmers of hope in Nepal. Pemba Lama, a 15-year-old boy, has become one of the symbols of Nepal's disaster. After being pulled from the rubble by rescue teams, he was taken to the Israeli military field hospital, erected on the outskirts of Kathmandu. The doctors here were surprised to find him almost unscathed, despite spending more than 5 days under a collapsed building. Even more than a week after the quake, survivors are still being found alive against all odds, but only a fortunate handful are lucky enough to withstand such an ordeal. This is where a 16-story residential building collapsed, burying those trapped inside. This Indian Army officer was optimistic.
Maybe the chances is there, but very less chances that there may be like, but we are still searching.
But to the dismay of onlooking relatives, the rescue team here was only able to find dead bodies.
Your brother and your sister?
Cousin, brother and sister.
On the same day, back at the IDF field hospital, the scene is a different one. This healthy baby girl was delivered by one of the Israeli doctors, a member of the military aid delegation.
This woman came in active phase of labor and she delivered spontaneously with just a little help of us. Right. So it's great. You can see the baby, the product, right. Quite big baby.
While scenes of destruction are hardly rare in the capital, life here is slowly returning to normal. The true crisis is now in the rural mountainous regions to the north, where some villages have been almost completely wiped out. It will take time to reveal the actual extent of the damage, along with the true number of casualties. These doctors, French and Israeli volunteers with the organization known as Rescuers Without Borders, managed to reach a remote military base at Melanchi by helicopter, where villagers from the surrounding area were brought for treatment. Some of the doctors continued even further north, the team tending to about 400 patients overall. Back in Kathmandu, Tudakel Park was the site where a tent city was erected in the immediate aftermath of the quake, with thousands fearful of remaining in their houses as aftershocks continued to rack the city in subsequent days. Slowly, however, as the tremors subside, people have begun to return to their homes. Those who are left here now are those with nowhere else to go.
My name is Beck.
Scott?
Yeah, so when I get more house, I go.
They will give you another house?
No, sorry.
No. In central Kathmandu's Durbar Square, where a series of temples collapsed during the original quake, there is a building left standing, almost untouched. This is the home of the royal Kumari, a girl of prepubescent age known as a living goddess, a reclusive religious figure revered as an earthly deity by the Nuar people, native to this region.
Can you just tell me, sir, stop camera, please?
While we were not allowed access to the Kumari herself, this man assured us she survived the earthquake unharmed.
We are very scared that time. There's going earthquake, there's all temple is going down. We are very afraid. We are going to know everywhere. Where is a safety place? We can go there. And she's okay.
What was it like for her?
I don't know how to say.
Does she speak?
That time, many tourist people inside, but all the people also safe inside that time.
Does she speak?
No, she does not speak.
She doesn't speak.
She can speak with our family.
A week after the disaster, most of the foreign rescue teams and volunteers have now left Nepal. Their time here and experience they are unlikely to forget.
As far as we're concerned, this experience has been a source of great pride from an Israeli and humanitarian perspective because we were able to save many lives.
For all the survivors left behind, it seems the true magnitude of the disaster will only be revealed in the coming weeks, as access to the more remote areas affected becomes available. The task of rebuilding a shattered nation looms, a long road ahead.
Yes, and with me right now is Shai Ben-Ari that just came back from Nepal. Shai, good evening.
Good evening, Lucy.
So how do you feel? How was it?
It was quite an experience, I have to tell you. It's a week in a disaster area, more or less. And really, me and Maël Ben Oliel, the French reporter, and cameraman, I think we were both very impressed with the character of the Nepalese people, basically, which really allowed them to really get through this kind of crisis, and they're, of course, still in the process of this crisis unfolding.
What do you mean by their character?
Right, there's something about the Nepalese character which is very restrained emotionally, which can obviously, it has its disadvantages, I imagine, but in this kind of situation, I think that really acts to their advantage, and it really allows them to be able to take these kinds of events in stride. Basically, Kathmandu right now is getting back to normal despite the horrible events that have occurred. People are getting back to work, people are getting back to their daily routines, opening shops. And for example, we spoke with people we spoke to, cab drivers, people at the hotels, and that kind of thing. The answer that when we asked them what were they feeling, what was their experience, many times it was, my family is okay, but my house is gone. Many of these people live in the villages surrounding Kathmandu. They come into work, they weren't able to get back to their homes. And you're talking to a person whose life has been destroyed more or less, but he just goes on with his life, he or she. And it was really impressive to see.
So we talked just a little bit before, and you said and you told about your experiences with the Israelis and Israeli rescue teams there, which kind of got to an awkward situation.
Right. There were some interesting situations that arose. You know, Israel was certainly at the forefront of this whole search and rescue effort. One of basically the biggest delegation, perhaps at least in terms of medical personnel in country to help the Nepalese people with this crisis. But there were certain cases where you see that the Israeli authorities really treat this crisis differently than other countries who also have even more people in Nepal missing, unaccounted for. There were certain situations, for example, with Israeli insurance companies landing flights in the remote rural areas to extract people out of there. And there were certain situations where we had people saying, no, only Israelis allowed on the flight. Others were turned away. You can imagine the kind of discomfort that kind of situation can bring. But this was the kind of moral dilemma that this kind of crisis can lead to.
Yeah, Shai Ben-Ari, good to have you back with us, and I hope that we will send you only to good places and not bad. Thank you very much. Yes, Israeli coalition negotiations keep supplying surprises as the Israeli foreign minister and leader of Israel Beitenu party, Avigdor Lieberman, announced today he's not going to join Netanyahu's government. With only 48 hours to go until the deadline expires, the News Today diplomatic correspondent Eli Ochenberg has the latest.
Our dilemma was principles or posts. I'm glad we eventually chose principles.
2 days before the deadline to establish a governing coalition, a political bomb has been detonated in Israel, putting the formation of Benjamin Netanyahu's fourth government at serious risk. Avigdor Lieberman, leader of the Israel Beitenu party and current foreign minister, officially announced he will not join Netanyahu and will instead lead his party into the opposition. Lieberman's ultra-secular party, at its core representing the Russian population in Israel, is angered by the coalition agreement signed with the ultra-Orthodox party United Toward Judaism, which included many perks for that community. Lieberman was also displeased with possible benefits the second ultra-Orthodox Shas party will receive.
What's being built is not a coalition that reflects the positions of the nationalist camp, but rather a government that is motivated by opportunism.
This dramatic shift comes after Lieberman has served 2 terms as foreign minister and has been a key ally of Netanyahu throughout the years. But the once powerful Israel Beitenu plunged in the March elections to just 6 seats, forcing the party and its leader to acknowledge reality and rethink their long-term strategy. Now, with Israel Beitenu out of the picture, Netanyahu is heading towards a narrow coalition of just 61 out of 120 members of parliament, unless there are last-minute surprises, which in Israeli politics is always possible.
And to understand a little bit more about the small chaos in the Israeli diplomacy and diplomatic correspondent Eli Ochenberg. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
You know, the slogan of Avigdor Lieberman was Tachlis Lieberman, which is the bottom line is Lieberman. And the bottom line today is that Lieberman had enough of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can't say it was a big surprise. Lieberman has been depressed for a while now. His political career was literally going down the drains. His party members were engaged in criminal investigations. The electorate didn't support him in the last round of elections, and he was declining by the second. So he had to stop, reshuffle everything, and rethink of a strategy that will keep him relevant. And this is exactly what we see now. There's an opportunity for the party to research for its compass and reemerge like the phoenix.
You know, they're trying to reemerge, but I'm trying to think, with whom will he, let's say, because it's Avigdor Lieberman, and we know who we are talking about, and I'm trying to guess who will be his new allies. And because before the elections we talked about a little bit about Yair Lapid getting closer to him, what are the chances that he will, let's say,
bond with him. Well, there's a vacuum now in the leadership of the opposition. Herzog is not very dominant here. Lapid is still finding himself. So Lieberman can try and make himself a crucial part of the opposition leadership. But the real implications of his quitting today has the short term and the long term. In the short term, it means a fierce battle on the foreign ministry post. Naftali Bennett is the first one in the list. He already acknowledged his poor reality, but now he will try to fight over the prestigious post he wanted so badly. And of course, within the Likud also, they started to divide among themselves the dry
really
pieces of bread.
Yeah,
and this is their chance to upgrade themselves. But in the long run, Lucy, it's much more severe, because it means that we are facing a 61-member coalition, and even if one member of the coalition will disobey or go against the coalition's ruling or moves, it means that everything can collapse. And we are also talking about a highly religious, highly right-wing government that in the long term has only slim chances to survive. But the good news are that we will probably see each other in approximately 6 months here in the studio covering yet another round of elections.
I thought that you were going to say yet another round of a war, but not elections.
Either one. Choose your favorite.
Because I think that first we will have a war, then we will have elections. It's good that it's on record. Yeah. God forbids, we're not wishing for any wars.
Of course.
Alejandro, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucy.
Yes, and if we're talking about war, stray mortar bombs continue to cross the border from Syria into Israel, this time wounding 2 UN peacekeepers in the Golan Heights. Meanwhile, the chaos inside Syria continues to worsen, with major setbacks for the Assad regime. Ayman Siksik has more.
In another escalation of the crisis in Syria, mortar bombs launched from Syria wounded 2 United Nations peacekeepers in the Golan Heights on Monday, in what appeared to be stray fire from the Syrian civil war. A military spokesperson said the peacekeepers were taken for treatment at an Israeli hospital. Meanwhile, the Ahrar al-Sham group in Syria seized the crossing in the southwest frontier area near Israel. The capture by the Idlib-based group would represent a major setback for Bashar al-Assad's regime. In another blow to Assad, a major general who heads the munitions and supply division of the Syrian army was wounded in a bombing attack in a central Damascus district on Monday. The suicide bomber reportedly detonated the bomb in Rukn ad-Din, a neighborhood of several security compounds. Meanwhile, United Nations consultations on Syria are expected to take place in Geneva on Tuesday, but expectations are admittedly low.
These are low-key, low-profile consultations, and they're not being held at presidential level. They're being held at the working level.
Earlier this year, tensions flared along Israel's northern border for the second time this year, following a suspected Israeli Air Force attack on weapon deliveries to Hezbollah, making the possibility of a future conflict between Hezbollah and Israel a potential development in the regional scenario.
Yes, witness in Gaza today reported a bomb blast targeting Hamas's security headquarters in Gaza City. Radical Islamists have threatened action when calling for release of jihadist prisoners. The group, calling itself the supporters of the Islamic State in Jerusalem, said Hamas has 72 hours to free the prisoners. More problems for Hamas. 2 gunmen were shot dead by police in the U.S. after opening fire on a draw the Prophet Muhammad contest in Texas. Shahal Peled has the details on the incident and the assailants.
Exactly 4 months after the shooting that left 12 dead at the satirical weekly Charlie Hebdo in Paris, police shot dead 2 gunmen Sunday outside a Prophet Muhammad cartoon contest in Texas.
Because of the situation and what was going on today and history of what we've been told has happened at other events like this, we're considering their car as possibly containing a bomb.
The incident took place at an event in a suburb of Dallas organized in the name of free speech by the right-wing American Freedom Defense Initiative.
The Jesus Christ on a cross in a jar of urine may be offensive to many.
but nobody went around killing people or burning embassies. This capitulation by the media, this capitulation by Western elites to silence ourselves so as not to offend savages is monstrous.
Many Muslims find depictions of Muhammad offensive, and such cartoons have triggered violent protests in the past. Police said the two men drove up to the conference center in Garland, Texas, where they shot and wounded a security guard.
This area is kind of shocking, considering Garland is a very nice area. You don't expect it here. And when it hits home, it's kind of different.
According to the FBI, one of the suspects has been identified as Elton Simpson, an Arizona man who was previously the subject of a terror investigation and reportedly used the hashtag Texas Attack about half an hour before the shooting. The event was attended by controversial Dutch far-right politician Geert Wilders, who has long been targeted by Islamists because of his extreme views on Islam. Whether his participation or the contest itself ignited the attack is still under investigation, while the war over freedom of speech versus freedom of religion continues in full throttle.
Freedom of speech, yes. Explain to me why these people are doing this contest. And yet I don't understand. Two more candidates threw their names into the Republican nomination pool over the past 24 hours. Ben Carson, a newcomer to politics and former neurosurgeon, and Carly Fiorina, former CEO of Hewlett-Packard. The 63-year-old Carson broke into the political arena 2 years ago, gaining momentum with conservatives after giving a speech highly critical of President Barack Obama. Fiorina is also new to the political scene and is the first female GOP candidate. Yeah, respect. And now to economy. Yes, and with me right now is economy reporter Daniel Roth. Good to have you here.
Good evening.
$7 billion.
$7 billion, yes.
$7 billion.
This is what Qatar paid for 24 Rafale fighter jets from France. It's $7 billion is a lot to you and I, of course. To Qatar, it's not so much, but it is a tidy sum. At the root of all of this, it's all actually leading back to Iran. The Iran deal, this has been months and months and years of headlines. And these arms deals, the airplanes that are being sold, France just sold to Egypt and India also in the last little while, and now to Qatar, these 24. A lot of this is reshuffling and setting up for people's nervousness surrounding an Iran deal.
Yeah, because when you think about it, France selling this to Qatar, and Qatar is financing Hamas, and Hamas is being also financed by Iran. This is not good way to go out against Iran when you are going out against a deal that is happening in Lausanne. This is like really...
Well, of course, on the other side,
yes.
Qatar is part of this coalition in Yemen, and of course, so there's money flowing around all over the Middle East in weapons and backing different players, and there's sides taken where the in different by different coalitions in different places in the region. It's almost impossible to tell what's going on. It's not impossible to tell. It's impossible to explain in such a short time. But at the core of this is this Iran deal and people's worry about what's going to happen. So billions of dollars are now being spent on Western weapons as the West continues its long journey of controlling, by and large, what happens here.
So how does it in one way or another? How does Iran is seeing all this in this sale?
Well, this is from the Iranian perspective. This is posturing. This is there's more and more American weapons, French weapons, as I said, Western weapons, kind of flowing in to the region as this peace deal is flowing out of talks.
Yeah, like you said, complicated. Daniel Roth, thank you very, very much for this.
Thank you.
And France today is awaiting perhaps the peak of the bitter family dispute within the far-right National Front Party. Its leaders are set to discuss the status of its prominent founder, Jean-Marie Le Pen. The 86-year-old has generated more controversy in recent weeks after again airing his view that Nazi gas chambers were just a detail of history. Le Pen turned up at the meeting but refused to stay for a disciplinacy hearing, calling by his daughter Marie Le Pen. And right now with me from our studios in Paris is André Burkhoff, journalist and French political analyst. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
So let's try to understand. This dispute is not coming only from now. This dispute is also about some money being transferred to other bank accounts that the father of Marie Le Pen maybe tried to, making it disappear. So this is a big issue happening. How can she really disconnect from her father if she can?
Well, let's separate. I don't think the money thing is linked with that. I mean, as going to with the feud between Jean-Marie and Marine Le Pen, you must remember. I mean, let's keep that into proportions. But it's it's a little Shakespearean. It's like a great tragedy. This Jean-Marie Le Pen founded the National Front. He held it together for 40 years. And what does he see? His daughter that he named, taking everything, and winning anyway, advancing in 2 years. And I think really, many people say it's a plot between father and daughter. I don't believe so. I think, the human sentiments, it's very primitive everywhere. 4,000 years later, it doesn't change. And I think he's very, he's very, very angry about what the situation is, that he said, now I'm 86, so I'm useless, so you're throwing me in the garbage. And I think he doesn't stand that. That's his provocation about Pétain, about the gas chambers, about all this folklore that he has been doing for years and years. And he knows that he's auto-destroying himself, and he continues, and he doesn't have any choice. But I think he's a past story.
André, do you really think that she can disconnect from her father and from his agenda and from his stories and from his controversies? Can you really, can a person, because we're human beings and because, it's human nature, like you're saying, can people really forget this? Can really people forget that they are, at the end of the day, a daughter and a father?
Yes, at the end of the day, they are daughter and father, but let's remind history. How many daughters and sons have killed morally and physically their fathers? I think really you must see history in that. And I mean, let's keep it in proportions, but it's very simple. Marine Le Pen wants power. I don't think she will get it, I don't know, but she wants power. Her father never wanted power. As soon as he was growing up and he was gaining some voices, he began his stupid illusions or criminal illusions, and he never wanted power. She wants power. She wants the Front National to be like a catch-all party. So the divorce was absolutely necessary, and the divorce is happening now. So, of course, there is a father. I mean, she couldn't do something without him. But I think really it's opening a new chapter where it will lead into, I don't know. But I don't think his power nuisance is very, very strong now.
Yes, I don't think that I could describe it better than you. It's a Shakespearean, definitely. André Burkhoff, thank you very much for this. Yes, just days ahead of the May 7th general election, a British Prime Minister, David Cameron's ruling Conservative Party is running neck and neck with Ed Miliband's Labour. The next report takes a look at the two candidates in a specific way.
British Prime Minister David Cameron has been accused of fighting a lacklustre election campaign.
But with days to go before the May 7th poll, he's finally injecting some passion.
As I say, when I hold those receptions at Downing Street, and when I get the people who got start-up loans coming into Downing Street and telling me what they've done, often giving up a well-paid career, taking a risk, having a punt, having a go, that pumps me up, and it's what is changing our country.
Opinion polls put Cameron's centre-right Conservative Party neck and neck with Labour. But going into the campaign, the Eton and Oxford-educated Prime Minister seemed to hold all the trump cards.
No doubt David Cameron went into the election in his usual rather relaxed self. He is a relaxed-looking politician. And this has been interpreted, I think, as the election's gone on, as almost as if he doesn't care, as if he's not trying hard enough to win. So suddenly we've seen in the last few days him getting enormously animated and, making points in a very much different way to try to get the message across.
David Cameron.
His coalition government led Britain out of a double-dip recession, and the Conservatives built their campaign around their long-term economic plan for recovery. And unlike his Labour Party opponent, Ed Miliband, whose geeky image had failed to connect with voters, most Britons view Cameron as a more natural leader. Even if he wins, the Conservatives are unlikely to gain a majority, meaning another coalition government. Cameron has said he will not carry on as Prime Minister beyond 2020. It's up to the electorate whether he gets that chance.
And staying in Britain, 2 days after the Duchess of Cambridge, Kate Middleton, gave birth to a baby girl, the new princess has been named. Charlotte Elizabeth Diana is fourth in line to the throne. Yes, I cannot believe they didn't call her Diana. How come they didn't call her? It's the first girl after. Unbelievable. Maybe somebody didn't want someone to be called Diana. I'm not getting into family business. I'm getting to the debate business. 2 minutes and I'll be back, don't worry.